We've got lots of people on board already, so might as well kick it off. Everybody wants to talk some Flames on a Thursday night. What do we have to talk about? We have nothing to talk about except what's on your screen right there. 5-1 at the Scotiabank Saddledome. Tragically, the Flames lose their first game in the reverse retros. That's the biggest travesty of all of what happened last night. But as we welcome you in to Flamesnation Live on a Thursday night, say hello to Ryan Pike on the bottom and Pat Steinberg up here on the top of your screen. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about, Pike. Boy, was that a frustrating 4-game set against Vancouver. Boy, has this been a frustrating 16 games. Say hello to Alex and Mike and Sean, Jeff, Shane, Noah, JF, Dallas, Steven, all in as we're underway on Flames Nation Live. I don't know what else to say about this group. I don't know what else to say to try to explain what we've seen. They have been an average team all year long. They have been a team that has basically followed the same script that every team has followed, save 2/3 of the 18-19 season. This is the DNA, the identity of the Calgary Flames over the last 10 years. But let's throw out the last 10 years. The identity of the Calgary Flames under this core, or with this core, is underachieving, inconsistent, and unable to answer the bell most times when it needs to be rang. And there's still 40 games to go. There's still time to flip this script. But boy, Saturday night was embarrassing. Monday was a 5-1 loss that was only slightly better, that they made so many glaring mistakes it was hard to comprehend. I don't know what to say anymore, Pike. We talked about it all day. It's Steinberg with you in the Sportsnet 960 studios. What do you think we talked about all day on the big show today? We talked about this.
Yeah, I was on during the 1 o'clock hour with our friend Will Nault, and this is what we talked about. It was a lot of, I think here's the gist of it. They are who we thought they were. I mean, outside of the 18-19 season, when the Flames, granted, some of it was shooting and save percentage driven, like they got lucky, but they rode luck and actually used it well. But since 13-14, since the post-Iginla era, and honestly for parts of the Iginla era too, the Flames have largely been a win one, lose one. They either show up from the get-go, kick the door down and take over a game, or they let the game come to them. And when they let the game come to them and get down early, they tend to lose. And when they kick the door down and show up and are eager, they tend to win. And this season, they've oscillated between good starts and playing 1-2 games where they look like they would rather be somewhere else. And this isn't us trying to pick on this year's team, because it isn't a this year issue. This is who the Calgary Flames are and have been since at least 2013.
Yep. Let's dive right into the comments. And before we get into, reading some of the comments, and we're happy to have you with you. We'll read as many as we can on the Facebook Live. It's Pike and Steinberg on Flames Nation Live. And I guess for me, the one thing that I was pretty adamant on this afternoon, I was pretty adamant on the call-in show last night, was this ain't a one person or one area issue. This isn't just Jeff Ward. Like, changing the coach, I don't think that changes everything. Changing the general manager, I don't think that changes everything. Making a big trade, I don't think that that's the magic bullet. There are so many fingers to point right now. There are so many areas that have led to where they are that it's almost, I think it's almost silly to say, well, this is all on the head coach of the coaching staff, or this is all on Brad Treliving's decision-making, or this is all about the core. And I understand all three of those areas deserve a very large share of the blame, but it is very much almost an equal share of the blame. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, I think that Brad Treliving deserves some criticism for some of the moves that did or did not happen this past offseason. And yes, I believe there are some really interesting decisions being made with this lineup and who's in and who's playing with who. And yes, I believe that there are some really frustrating efforts by key core members failing to dig in when they need to. And all of those things combined, and you get a really frustrating 16 games.
And I'll say what I said this afternoon with Will. I mean, let's be completely honest here. Let's call a spade a spade. The Flames are an inconsistent bunch, but they're also a pretty talented bunch. And I think to a certain extent, the original sin of this era, this cohort of Calgary Flames hockey might have been that 14-15 find away Flames year, because in a time where they purposely kept a taskmaster coach by the name of Bob Hartley, who has any number of flaws that we don't really need to get into right now. But the whole point of having Hartley was he's going to drill some work ethic in these guys. They'll know they have to work. The problem is the Flames had a lot of games where they got in too deep and managed to pull themselves out of it. And I think to a certain extent, like Pat, like the habits that you have as a broadcaster and as a journalist have been ingrained upon you throughout years. And the early lessons you have, for better or for worse, you probably have some bad habits you don't like of yourself, but those were what were imprinted on you early. And it's not like the bad habits that you have in your life are intentional. Sometimes you don't even think about them. And I think that's a lot of what's happened with the Flames, where, if you know in the back of your head that, holy crap, we might get down a goal or two, but we have Johnny Gaudreau, who's an absolute wizard, and we have Elias Lindholm and Mark Giordano, and the list goes on. They have a lot of really good pieces who, on an individual basis, can change the course of a game and pull their bacon out of the fire. So if you know you can do that, and you've managed to be one of the league's leading teams in trailing games, as in the Calgary Flames since 2013 have trailed more often than not, and more often than a lot of the teams in the NHL, but they've managed to make the playoffs so often because they've had really, really good players, and they've managed to just turn it on. If you know you can just turn it on, or you think you can turn it on, maybe some habits start slipping. So both those things can be true, and I don't think you can swap. If you swap out a coach, they're on their fourth coach, and the habit's still there. They just need to swap out players. They've swapped out Dougie Hamilton. They've swapped out some significant pieces, and the song is still the same. Which means I don't think you can, unless you replace literally the entire group. I don't like. You can say, oh, you're going to switch out the core. They're probably going to lose Sam Bennett in the expansion draft. Is that going to change the songbook? Even if in a year, when they eventually have to choose between Kachuk and Gaudreau to build around for cap reasons, is that going to fundamentally change things? I don't think on its own, and I don't think you can go into any particular move, whether it be coach, player, whatever, and think you're going to solve whatever problems they have, because a lot of the problems they have, like, what's the old saying? Like, it's not a bug, it's a feature. One of the features of the Calgary Flames is that they have these miraculous, heart-wrenching comebacks where you delete 2/3 of your story right before you think you're going to be able to post it. And, you and I have joked about this post games. There's been times where, I write 2 recaps. There's been times where our print media and online media colleagues write multiple versions of a story because in the back of your mind, you think, if the Flames are losing, they might still come back, so we might have to do it. So it's a feature. It's not a bug. This is just who they are.
Let's get to some of our comments from you watching. Lots of people on with us live, as you'd expect after yesterday. I think frustration is boiled over in a big, big way. Elias, why does Coach Ward make questionable decisions like overplaying Markstrom, playing Simone on the top line, too many line changes, etc.? Why? I don't know why. I mean, the reason why is because he believes these are the right decisions. Whether or not we believe they're the right decisions on the outside is another question. And so I always have a little bit of trouble with this one because you say one thing and automatically, oh, you're shilling for the team. Well, no, that's not the case. But I do know that more goes into these decisions than just, I feel like something different, throw this against the wall. There's a lot of preparation, a lot of analytics, a lot of research, a lot of conversation that goes into it. And those are things that Pike, you and I, and you, Elias, and anybody else who's watching with us, we're not privy to those conversations. But from the outside, yes, there have been some head scratchers. The Bennett to the fourth line and Simone to start with Gaudreau and Monahan, I don't get it. Dominic Simone has not proven to me that he is a top 6 NHLer or belongs in the top 6 on this team. I don't get that one. I don't get some of the line combinations and the constant line juggling that we've seen. I don't. That's on the outside. That would so I don't know all the reasons because we're not privy to those conversations. But yes, I would say there have been some that absolutely, from my standpoint as a talk show host and not a coach, yeah, I've definitely scratched my head on.
And I think, for a lot of those things, like say, okay, why did they dress Brett Ritchie and why is Ritchie put into the top six? Brett Ritchie was put in the top six because they didn't they if Dominic Simone's not working, you need to try something different, and they would like to have a right shot on that line with Gaudreau and Monahan, and he's a puck retrieval guy that in theory can crash and bang and make some room. Okay, yeah, it's a template they've seen that's worked in the past. It worked with Michael Furlan. It worked to a certain degree with other players. So I think a lot of it is they look at what's worked analytically and otherwise and go, okay, these are our options. So if you're someone who's going, I know there's, our buddy Mike Gould has sort of been a little bit critical of the team. Like, why haven't they used Phillips or Godden? Well, I think I'm a big Phillips guy. I'm a big Godden guy. But on a certain extent, like, it's sort of the same thought of process probably behind why didn't they just throw in David Riddick when the team is playing like garbage? Generally speaking, they don't want to force someone to have to be a savior. So say, remember when the Flames I think the Flames have learned a lot from how they've developed prospects in the past, and I think they've learned a lot from Sven Baertschi, where Sven Baertschi came in when the team was playing like trash, and to a certain extent, it does fall on that management group of the past because he came in, had a few good games, and the then general manager Jay Feaster said that he thinks he can be the next face of the franchise, which is a terrible thing to frame a player as. You don't want to make a 20-year-old kid the guy who's going to save the Calgary Flames any more than our friends up north wanted to make any kind of any semblance of 18-year-olds the saviors of the Edmonton Oilers. Just turned out that way. So that's a long way of saying, why aren't they throwing Godden and Phillips in? When the team's playing like garbage, it's a terrible situation to throw a guy in for his first NHL reps because, are you going to get any sense of what Phillips or Godden or even right now David Riddick are or can be when nothing else is working? Mm-hmm. So you throw in someone like, do you think you're going to ruin Brett Ritchie, who's played as Brett Ritchie is what he's going to be. Buddy Robinson is what he's going to be. Zach Ronaldo is what he's going to be. So in a short-term fix for a Band-Aid because you just need some guy to fill a spot who you kind of know and kind of trust, throw in a guy who's not going to be harmed by it. So they have the long-term view with a lot of these kids, especially the kids that they really like Godden and Phillips. So I know some of you were very critical of that, so I thought I'd like Pat said, shill for the team a bit and sort of try to explain what I think their rationale is, because on the outside it's kind of a head scratcher.
This comes from Travis's. Pat, this team isn't going to win the way they're constructed. This is the real Flames. Nothing has changed. Always look great on paper, but always leave a lot to be wanted. I think that Brad Treliving added two really important pieces to this team over the offseason. I think the acquisitions of Craig Conroy and the acquisitions of sorry, not Craig Conroy. I just got a text from somebody about Craig Conroy. No, the acquisitions of Chris Tanev and the acquisitions of Jacob Markstrom. Conroy would be an interesting acquisition. Those two, those are huge acquisitions on this team. Those are huge culture-changing pieces. But there's also the question of, did they do enough at their forward group? Did they address the area where they were the most vulnerable against Dallas, the most vulnerable against Colorado? And I think the end, Dominic Simone, Josh Levo, and Joachim Nordstrom are not enough, clearly, at this point, to make this team a harder team to play against. They did not add, they did not shake up. So I think you can also point fingers at, is this team constructed like an elite hockey team? And if you're not an elite hockey team, do you play like an elite hockey team? The middle of the pack teams have high highs, but they also have way more inconsistencies. Whereas the Tampas or the Bostons or the St. Louis's or the Vegas's, yes, they have ups and downs, but they're way more up and they're way more flatline up. And so that also, I think, you can point fingers at a lot of places, and I wonder if this team is constructed well enough to be a high-end team.
And let's be completely honest, the teams, like, say, if you look at the teams that have backfilled with good depth very well, I'm thinking specifically of Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has done a great job of just slotting some guys in, guys they drafted, guys they developed, guys that they know quite well and trust. And these, I think the moves the Flames made were inexpensive, but they're Band-Aids. And if I'm there's two gentlemen I think are very excited to see these Band-Aids not exactly worked out perfectly. Jacob Pelche and Connor Zary, because both those guys are eligible to play AHL or NHL hockey next year. And I'm thinking specifically of Pelche. If you see someone like Nordstrom or Josh Olivo not exactly work out great, if you're Pelche, you're probably thinking, you know what? I'm probably not that much more expensive than those guys next season. And if I'm a little bit better, or they think I'll be a little bit better giving me 20 games, So I think this season, I don't think the Flames had anybody internally that they thought could come in and take the jobs and not have question marks. So I thought, making these short-term acquisitions like Simone, Levo, Nordstrom, you can kind of wrap your head around them. But in a year, the calculus completely changes, because you have two guys that had very good World Junior tournaments, particularly Pelche, who could fill those secondary roles and have a chance to really grow within those roles for the next year.
Yep. What else we got? Mark says a completely new direction. This core has had over half a decade to progress. It hasn't. Until Tree shakes things up, it's not going to change. I edited the comment a little bit. But is it so? Here's kind of the last thing that I'll say. But is it even realistic to think that any of these changes? Because there's in one group of people, it's fire the coach. The other group of people, it's fire the GM. The other group of people, it is make a core altering change. Of any of those, are any of them realistic this year? A revolving door of coaches over the last 5 years, COVID screwing up everything, making it hard to make real trades or good trades or trades that can help you right now. I don't know if any of this is really realistic in the current season that we're in right now.
Yeah, and let's be completely honest here. Unless every young up and comer in the organization completely flatlines and just turns into a junk pick, they have enough options and enough depth internally and enough young guys on the team right now who are going to get better. I'm thinking Mangiapane, Dubé, those kind of guys. The way the flat cap system is, the Flames, like, let's just say, oh, you want to change the culture. I don't think they can. I think it's not a coaching thing, because we've heard the song before and they've changed coaches and it's a very similar song being sung. So if you're going for you need to make a big swing with the trade, or even if you let, say, Gaudreau leave by free agency, the Flames are deep enough and they have enough young guys coming up with the system that they're not going to really need to do a teardown. So I think if you think the team is just built like a shanty and you need to tear it down and start from scratch, then sure, you axe the GM. But I think they've done enough since Tree came in that they have some sustainability internally. And, will they need to make some changes in terms of maybe you don't make as many Brouwer deals or Neal deals? There's definitely some blind spots with this organization right now, but they're fairly intelligently built for the most part. They've done a good job with drafting. They've done a good job with free agent recruitment, especially from college in Europe. So I don't think you need to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Does that mean you change nothing? Well, no, because that'd be, you can't keep, just for cap reasons, you can't keep the same team forever. So I think they have some difficult decisions to make, and I think we're probably about a year or so away from some of those decisions having to be made vis-a-vis Gaudreau and Tkachuk. But in the interim, like, they're a good enough team that they're, barring anything crazy going on, they're gonna be in the playoff mix, and they're about a good week more than in bad weeks away from being a pretty much home and cool playoff team. Like, that's how good they can be, and that's how tight this conference division is going to be. It's probably going to be like that next year when we get back to normal with Seattle coming in, because I don't think Seattle's going to be Vegas good, but I don't think they're going to be Ottawa bad.
Yep.
So I think it's we're going to be looking at this pretty much the same way until the summer of 2022. So it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster like it has been since 2013.
Last thing I'll say, as we wrap up today, great the conversation. I can't read all the comments, but just looking at the conversation on the side, great conversations having with everybody who's watching with us right now. Last thing I'll say is I think that they can figure this out to an extent. I think that they can be better than what they've played. The problem is it almost doesn't matter in that right now they're getting crushed because they're failing to meet expectations. If/when they start to meet expectations, it's, well, yeah, you should be like, we're not going to give you a round of applause for meeting expectations. And then it all comes down to the same thing. You better prove it in the playoffs. And until the playoff narrative changes, we're not going to stop having these conversations, and we're not going to stop having these kind of boiling overs of frustrations. So it's kind of like this year, they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. Nobody's going to give them credit for anything this regular season. That's the spot they put themselves in. But you sure as hell are going to get fired up and crush them if they don't live up to expectations. Like,
well, look at who our favorite New Jersey product's doing. Like Johnny Gaudreau is having a fantastic year right now. Yet the positive noise is nothing compared to what people were reacting like when he wasn't amazing in the playoffs last year. So, I mean, I don't think he expects a parade. He's getting paid very handsomely for his contributions to the team relative to his peer group. He's probably still a bargain based on when he signed, but he's Johnny Gaudreau is having a hell of a season, but it's not like he's getting standing ovations everywhere he goes because A, it's a pandemic, and B, that's sort of the game he signed up for, right?
thank you, everybody. Thank you, Pike. This is a very well attended version of Flames Nation Live. It is great to have you with us. If you missed a little bit of it, we'll have it up on Instagram Live and on Facebook here in a couple of minutes. But great participation, awesome comments. Pike, you're a 10 out of 10 as always. Hopefully things are a little bit better, at least for the Battle of Alberta, Friday, Saturday, 7 o'clock Friday. 8 o'clock Saturday, both games on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Tune into the big show tomorrow. Hopefully a little bit more positive and a little less negative tomorrow on the big show. For Pike, I'm Steinberg. Be well. This has been another Flames Nation Live. Stay safe. Be kind to one another. We'll talk to you next week on Flames Nation Live. Bye, all.